The terminology. Terminology can affect whether you sell, and it also can affect whether or not what you're saying is legal or not, just by the words you choose. How about words that help you sell and words that don't? Words not to say. Don't say price. Say investment. Don't say down payment. Say initial investment. Don't say payment. Say, you got it, monthly investment. Don't say contract. Say agreement or paperwork. The words you choose will affect whether you'll make the sale or not in many cases. Don't say sign right here. Say okay or approve, or let me have you John Hancock right here. Don't say I'm going to send it in to see if we can get you done. I never did figure what that one meant. Get you done. Say, we're going to send it to see if we can obtain financing for you. Don't say my deal. Let me go check on your deal. It's our opportunity. Or it's your opportunity. The terminology you use will affect how well you sell. And focusing on the right, and I didn't say this was easy. I didn't say it's easy not to say contract. You got to learn it. Also, if you're illegal or not. Here, let me give you some illegal words. It's included. It's included. What should you say? The payment of $351.21 includes the vehicle service contract that does and describe. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with assuming the positive. What you can't do is deceive or misrepresent or manipulate. You can't say the bank approved it this way. Can't say that. But you can say the bank has approved any option you select up to X. We're saying the same thing. We're saying it in a different way. Yes, it's more straightforward. Yes, it's more precise. And it's legal. You can't say this is your payment to buy the bike, and that just happens to include a service contract, and you don't tell them, and then you turn them over to F&I, and they just kind of tap dance and put them smoothly through the close. You can't do that. But you could tell them, this is your payment, which includes the service contract, and describe to them what it is. As long as you're itemizing it out for them. You can do that. It's all in the words used. The words you choose will choose how you sell, and it will also affect whether you're legal or not. Gap protection. Gap, or guaranteed asset protection, is the fastest growing product in the F&I industry today. So what is gap protection? In the event a unit is totaled or stolen and unrecovered, the insurance company will pay actual cash value or fair market value of that unit. There is very likely to be a difference between that and what the payoff is at the time of loss. Gap picks up that difference, in addition pays the deductible. So let's take a typical situation. Say a person buys a motorcycle for $15,000 and they finance 100% of NADA retail at a term of 60 months. After 30 months, let's estimate the payoff would be $11,000, and the actual cash value or fair market value of the motorcycle is $7,000. And that deductible is $500. So what's the gap? Well, $11,000 is the payoff. You have $7,000 as actual cash value, that difference being $4,000, plus the deductible of $500 or $4,500 would be the customer's liability. Gap protection will pay that off, and that would prevent the customer from either A, having to pay it themselves, B, having to finance that by itself and then end up with a new motorcycle payment in addition, C, possibly including that amount if the lender will let them in their new loan, or D, not being able to get a new bike at all. All of these scenarios are bad for the customer and bad for us. When is there a need for gap protection? Well, some argue that with gap protection, there's always a need because there's always a deductible and there is always a possibility for a deficiency. I like to err toward a more conservative position. If a person is financing 80% of the sale price or more, then they're likely to have a gap in the event the unit is totaled or stolen and unrecovered. Other factors to consider are how long the customer is financing, since a longer term pays the principal down at a slower pace. How many miles will they put on the bike? Or is there a state or lender cap that needs to be considered? So how do we present the product to the customer? Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you, like many of our customers, are financing 80% or more of the sale price. That being the case, in the event that your motorcycle is totaled or stolen and not recovered, there is very likely to be a deficiency from what the insurance company will pay and what your payoff will be. You will be responsible for that deficiency and whatever the deductible is on your insurance. By taking advantage of a product we call guaranteed asset protection, that shortfall will be taken care of and you won't have to worry about it. Now that is included right in the payment of $187.25, and we're going to start your first due date up 45 days from today, if that works out okay for you. We could actually move that due date back 30 days if you choose, and it would decrease your payment just a little. After giving that customer this alternative, you do what? You wait for a response. Objections to gap. Some people will see the value and say, fine, that works out fine for me. Other people will say, well, I don't think I need that. Or they might say, how much does that cost? Or they might say, well, you know, I think my insurance company pays 100% in the event my unit is totaled. Let's address those, which are the three primary objections that you're going to get with this product. I just don't think I need it. Respond like this. Well, I hope you don't. But since you're financing 100% of the sale price, it is very likely in the event that your bike is totaled or stolen and not recovered that you're going to have a shortfall. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever leased an automobile before? Well, if you had leased an automobile, this protection would be included in the monthly payment. Now, let me explain to you why that is in the case of a lease. The actual owner of the vehicle is a lease company, isn't it? And they recognize that in the event the unit is totaled or stolen and not recovered, there will be a shortfall. They want to make sure that they are protected against that. Doesn't it make sense that you're the owner of this purchase and that you protect yourself in the same way? Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this protection is only $6 a month. We can begin your payment 45 days from today, if that works out okay, or we can move it back to 30, whichever makes best sense to you. And then you do what? You wait for a response. How about the objection? I think it just costs too much. Respond like this. In the event that your motorcycle is totaled or stolen, you are very likely to have a gap or deficiency from what the payoff is and what the actual cash value of the bike is. Let me show you a typical illustration. And then you pull out a brochure, and in most cases the gap companies provide these and illustrate of a typical situation as we discussed earlier. Review the illustration and close with, there will be a gap of $3,500 plus the deductible, which makes $4,000. Let me ask you, do you think it's going to be easier for you to pay $6 a month or have to make up that $4,000 deficiency in the event your unit is totaled or stolen and unrecovered? And once you ask them that question, you do what? Again, you wait for a response. Now, don't make the mistake of trying to figure out what their bike will be worth in 30 months. Why? They don't want you to tell them that their bike is only going to be worth 50% of what they paid for it, even though that might be the case. By using a typical illustration, you won't be as personal. How about the objection, my insurance company pays 100%? We know that this isn't the case, but our objective, is to sell the product to the customer, and by telling them, well, that's not the case, it will only offend them. So there's a way you can do this without offending them. Again, they say, well, my insurance company pays 100%. You say, yes, that's right. They do. They pay 100% of whatever the actual cash value is of the bike at the time of loss. That's what the bike is worth at the time of loss. The only way you can have gap protection or pick up that deficiency is if the insurance company would have an addendum on that policy to cover you for that difference. Show them a typical illustration again and close with, the insurance company can't do one thing we can do here, and that is to include it in your monthly payment. Let me ask you, is it easier for you to afford $6 a month or $4,000 shortfall in the event that this occurs? And then you do what? You wait for a response. If you're not selling this product, you're missing out, because this product is the fastest growing product in the F&I industry today. I can tell you many, many success stories about people that have told me, I never sold it, I started offering it, and it is amazing how easy it is to sell. And why is that? Because the customer sees the value, and the increase in the monthly payment is nominal.